Welcome to the Reddit Family to Us YouTube channel, a place where genuine and inspiring family stories are shared. Here, you'll enjoy unique videos about family life, humorous moments, and meaningful lessons. Let's explore together the stories where love and connection shine through. Join us in creating beautiful memories. Please comment and let us know where you're watching from. Hit subscribe now so you won't miss the special video launching tomorrow. 20 years of lies exposed. My wife's double life revealed. For 20 years, I believed I had a solid, loving marriage. Jessica and I had been together since high school. She was a senior when I was a junior. Our relationship survived a long-distance phase while she attended college, and I stayed behind for a year at community college before transferring to a university in the same city. From that point forward, we were inseparable. We moved in together, built a life side by side, and eventually got married the summer after I graduated. It wasn't always perfect, but I truly thought we had something strong. Then, everything changed in an instant. Just after Christmas, we attended a small gathering with some of Jessica's old college friends. It was meant to be a simple, casual dinner, just a few people reminiscing about their college years, laughing over old stories, and catching up on life. I enjoyed these kinds of events because they gave me a glimpse into a part of Jessica's past that I hadn't been a part of. At one point in the conversation, Jessica casually mentioned that we had met in high school. She didn't specify that we had been dating back then, only that we had known each other since those days. One of her old roommates, visibly nostalgic, smiled and said, "Wow, you two are amazing. You went through your wild college years and still ended up together." I chuckled and played along. "I don't know if Jessica was all that wild," I joked, assuming it was just a light-hearted remark. But then, I noticed something strange. Jessica's entire demeanor shifted. She immediately cut the conversation short, laughing nervously, and changed the subject. The air in the room grew tense. It was subtle, but I felt it. A sinking feeling settled in my gut. Something was off. As the night continued, I couldn't shake the uneasy feeling. And then, as we were getting ready to leave, another one of her friends, someone who had remained quiet for most of the night, pulled me aside. She hesitated before finally saying, "Michael, you might want to have an honest conversation with Jessica about what really happened during her college years." Those words hit me like a truck. On the drive home, I kept replaying the conversation in my head. My mind raced with questions I had never thought to ask before. As soon as we walked into the house, I turned to Jessica and asked directly, "What did your friend mean by that?" She froze. Then, with an uneasy smile, she waved it off. "It's nothing," she said. "Just old college drama. You're overthinking it." But something told me I wasn't. I couldn't let it go. Jessica's reaction at dinner and her friend's cryptic comment haunted me. I had spent the last 20 years believing in the strength of our marriage, but for the first time, doubt crept in. As we sat in the car on the way home, the silence between us was heavy. My mind raced with questions, each one more unsettling than the last. When we got home, I turned to Jessica again. "Tell me the truth," I said, my voice steady but firm. "What did she mean? What happened during those years?" Jessica sighed, rubbing her temples as if the weight of my question was too much to bear. "Michael, it was nothing," she insisted. "Just some college nonsense. I don't even know why she brought it up." But I knew she was lying. I could see it in her eyes, the hesitation, the nervous energy. She wasn't just brushing it off. She was hiding something. I stood up, grabbed my keys, and made my way toward the door. "I'm going to stay at my brother's until you're ready to be honest with me," I said. That got her attention. Her expression changed from dismissive to panicked. "Wait," she said quickly, reaching for my arm. "Don't go. Let's talk." I stopped, waiting. Jessica took a deep breath, her hands shaking. And then, the words I never expected to hear came tumbling out. "During my first 2 years of college, I slept with other men," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "I didn't think our relationship would last. I didn't think it was a big deal at the time." My heart felt like it had stopped beating. I stared at her, waiting for her to take it back, to say this was some cruel joke. But she didn't. Instead, she kept talking, unraveling a truth that shattered everything I thought I knew about my wife. "At least 10, she continued, avoiding my gaze. "Maybe more. I didn't keep track." The room started spinning. "And some of them," she hesitated, her voice cracking. "Some of them were guys you met. Friends I introduced you to when you visited." I took a step back as if the physical distance could lessen the impact of her words. She had brought me into her world back then, made me feel included. But the entire time, I had been nothing more than a fool in the dark, completely unaware that I was shaking hands with men who had been with my girlfriend, my future wife. The worst part? One of them was still in our lives. Someone we saw regularly. Someone I had trusted. I felt sick. Jessica reached for me, her face filled with regret, but I pulled away. "Michael, I didn't think it mattered. It was so long ago. I never wanted to hurt you." I let out a bitter laugh, shaking my head. "But you did." I grabbed my keys and walked out the door, leaving behind the life I thought I knew. I spent the night at my brother's place, but I barely slept. My mind kept replaying Jessica's words, "at least 10 men," over and over like a broken record. The betrayal, the lies, the sheer audacity of it all weighed on me like a ton of bricks. I had spent the past 20 years believing in a marriage built on trust, only to find out it was built on deception. By morning, my emotions had hardened into something else, resolve. This wasn't just about her infidelity in college. It was about the fact that she had hidden it from me for 2 decades, let me believe in a version of our life together that wasn't real. And the worst part? She still didn't think it was a big deal. I decided I needed more answers. Not from her, I didn't trust a single word she said anymore, but from someone who had been there. I reached out to Lisa, the college roommate who had pulled me aside at dinner. She answered on the second ring. "Michael," she said cautiously, as if she already knew why I was calling. "I need the truth," I said, my voice tight. "No more vague warnings. Just tell me what happened." There was a long pause. Then, a sigh. "I always thought you knew," Lisa admitted. "Or at least that you two had moved past it. But when I saw your face that night, I realized. She never told you, did she?" "No," I said, gripping the phone tighter. Lisa hesitated, but then she started talking. And what she told me made me feel like I was hearing it for the first time all over again, except worse. "It wasn't just random guys, Michael," she said. "She was practically living a double life. She'd be out partying, hooking up, and then the next weekend, you'd come to visit, and she'd act like the perfect girlfriend. Some of the guys she was with knew about you. Some didn't. But the thing is, she never tried to hide it from us. She acted like it was normal." I swallowed hard. "And the guy who's still in our lives?" Lisa sighed. Yeah, he was one of them. I don't know if he ever knew the full truth about you two back then, but he wasn't just a one-time thing. My stomach turned. And there's something else, Lisa added hesitantly. There was a pregnancy scare. She was terrified for a couple of weeks. But then she told us it wasn't yours, so it didn't matter. I felt like the ground beneath me had just disappeared. That's all I know, Lisa said softly. I'm sorry, Michael. You didn't deserve this. I hung up, numb. Jessica had looked me in the eye for the past 20 years, shared a home with me, built a family with me, and never once thought I deserved to know the truth. But I knew now. And I was done. I sat in my car for nearly an hour, gripping the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. Lisa's words echoed in my head like a haunting refrain. She was practically living a double life. Some of the guys knew about you. Some didn't. And then the worst part, the pregnancy scare. It wasn't just the cheating. It was the blatant disregard for me, for our relationship, for the commitment I thought we had. Jessica had made a choice, over and over again, to deceive me. She had slept beside me for the past 2 decades knowing full well that I was living a lie. By the time I got home, I wasn't just angry, I was done. Jessica was in the kitchen when I walked in. She looked up, relief flashing in her eyes for a split second before she registered my expression. You talked to Lisa, didn't you? She asked, her voice tight. I dropped my keys on the counter. I did. She swallowed, folding her arms. Michael, listen. No, I cut her off. You listen. You had a pregnancy scare, Jessica. And you knew it wasn't mine. She flinched. For 20 years, you've let me believe that we had something real. That our marriage was built on trust, on honesty. And the entire time, you were sitting on a secret so big it could have destroyed us before we even started. Her eyes filled with tears. It was a mistake. I was young. I was stupid. I didn't think we would last. I let out a bitter laugh. And yet you had no problem letting me commit to you, letting me believe we were solid. You let me build a life with you on a foundation of lies. She reached for me, but I stepped back. It didn't mean anything, Michael. I never loved any of them. I love you. No, I said, shaking my head. You don't. If you did, you would have told me the truth years ago. Instead, you let me find out like this, at a dinner with your friends, through a conversation you cut off because you knew it would expose you. Her tears spilled over. I didn't know how to tell you. I was afraid. You were afraid of losing your comfortable life, I snapped. You weren't afraid when you were out partying, when you were sleeping with guys and letting them believe you were single. You were only afraid when there were consequences. She started sobbing then, her shoulders shaking. I watched her for a long moment, waiting to feel some kind of pull, some last thread of attachment that would make me stay. But I felt nothing. Michael, please, she whispered. We can get through this. We can go to therapy, we can. No, I said, finality in my voice. There's no fixing this, Jessica. I don't trust you anymore. And I never will. Her sobs grew louder as I turned and walked away. That night, I started packing my bags. The house felt different that night, hollow, like the walls had absorbed every lie and betrayal Jessica had hidden for 2 decades. As I packed my suitcase, I could hear her crying in the bedroom, muffled sobs that might have broken me once. But not anymore. Not after everything. I zipped up my bag, pausing as I glanced at a framed picture of us on the nightstand. It was from our honeymoon, Jessica laughing, the ocean behind us, my arm around her like I would never let go. I stared at it for a moment, then turned it face down. When I stepped out of the room, Jessica was standing by the door, her eyes red and swollen. "You're really leaving," she whispered. I exhaled. "Yeah. I am." She wiped her face. "I never wanted it to end like this." I let out a dry laugh. "You mean you never wanted to get caught like this?" Her lip trembled, but she didn't deny it. She knew there was no way out of this. No word she could spin to make me unsee the truth. "I need to know one thing," I said, gripping the handle of my suitcase. "If Lisa hadn't said anything, if no one had ever brought it up, would you have ever told me?" Jessica opened her mouth, then hesitated. That hesitation told me everything I needed to know. I shook my head. "That's what I thought." She reached for my hand, but I stepped back. "Michael, I love you." I met her gaze, feeling nothing but emptiness. "No, Jessica. You don't. You love what we had. You love the life we built. But you don't love me enough to have ever told me the truth." Her shoulders shook as fresh tears spilled down her face. "What do I tell the kids?" she choked out. I swallowed hard. That was the one part I hadn't figured out yet. "We'll tell them together," I said after a long pause. "They deserve honesty, something you and I should have had from the beginning." She nodded slowly, biting her lip. "And us? Do we even try to fix this?" I clenched my jaw. "There is no us, Jessica. Not anymore." I turned and walked out the door without looking back. As I stepped outside, the cold air hit me like a slap, but it was nothing compared to the chill inside that house. For the first time in years, I was walking away from something I thought was forever. And somehow, despite the pain, it felt like the first real step forward in a long, long time. What do you think? This story is intense, emotional, and filled with tough decisions. If you were in Michael's shoes, would you have done the same? Could you ever forgive a betrayal that lasted for years? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Let's discuss. Would you walk away? Or try to fix things?